The chilling tale of the Hookman first clawed its way into American consciousness during the 1950s. This was a period of apparent peace, yet, underneath the surface, new anxieties were brewing. The story typically featured a young couple. They sought privacy in a parked car on a secluded lover's lane. Their romantic interlude would be terrifyingly interrupted. An escaped mental patient or a vengeful figure was said to be lurking. This figure was distinguished by a grisly prosthetic, a sharp, menacing hook in place of a hand. The legend quickly became a cautionary tale. It warned teenagers about the dangers of isolated places and unsupervised courtship. The Hookman narrative did not spring from a vacuum. It drew from a deep well of older folklore and very real societal fears. Stories of maimed villains and dangerous outsiders have existed for centuries. Think of pirates with hooks or peg legs. These characters embodied otherness and threat. Furthermore, the post-war era saw rising concerns about juvenile delinquency. Media reports often sensationalized crime. This created an atmosphere where such a frightening story could easily take root. The Hookman, therefore, was a modern manifestation of ancient fears. He was tailored to the specific anxieties of mid-20th century America, becoming a potent symbol. Several real-life events and pervasive myths likely contributed to the Hookman legend's development. Local crime stories, sometimes involving attacks on couples, could have been embellished. These stories, passed from person to person, would morph and grow. The figure of the escaped lunatic was a common trope. It reflected societal unease about mental illness and institutions. The hook itself is a powerful, visceral image. It suggests a brutal, primitive form of violence. This detail made the story particularly memorable and frightening for young audiences. The legend became a patchwork quilt of existing fears and narrative elements. The cultural and historical background of the post-war era was fertile ground for such a legend. The 1950s are often remembered for conformity and prosperity. However, there were underlying tensions. The Cold War brought a constant sense of unease. Rapid social changes like increasing teenage autonomy and the rise of car culture created new anxieties for parents. The car gave young people unprecedented freedom. This freedom also placed them in potentially vulnerable situations. The Hookman legend tapped into these fears. It served as a stark warning about the perils that might lurk just beyond the glow of suburban streetlights and parental supervision. The Hookman legend spread with remarkable speed and efficiency. It primarily traveled through word of mouth. Teenagers shared the story during sleepovers, campfires, and late-night drives. Each retelling might add a new detail or a local twist. This made the story feel more immediate and believable. Early forms of media also played a role. Though not initially a major film subject, variants appeared in pulp magazines or local news scares. These stories often blurred the line between rumor and reported event. The legend's core elements, the isolated couple, the strange noise, the chilling discovery, were highly adaptable. This allowed it to resonate in diverse communities across the country. The story, naturally, instilled a significant amount of fear, particularly among young people. Lovers' lanes, once seen as places of romantic escape, became tinged with menace. The thought of a shadowy figure with a hook was genuinely terrifying. Many teenagers reported feeling a palpable sense of dread when parked in isolated areas. Some couples even changed their dating habits. They opted for safer, more public locations. The legend's power lay in its plausibility. While a man with a hook hand seemed extreme, the vulnerability of a parked car at night felt very real. This fear was a testament to the story's psychological grip. This widespread fear sometimes led to more formal reactions, including police involvement. In some communities, local police departments received reports of suspicious individuals. These reports were often fueled by the Hookman legend. Officers might increase patrols in known lovers' lane areas. While no actual Hookman was ever apprehended, the fear itself was a real phenomenon. The legend also had an unintended consequence. It raised awareness about general safety. It encouraged people to be more cautious about their surroundings. The story, though fictional, prompted real-world changes in behavior and vigilance, making people think twice about isolated spots. Real events and media sensationalism undoubtedly shaped belief in the Hookman. Any local crime involving an assault, especially in a remote area, could be cited as proof. Newspapers of the era were not always as scrupulous about fact-checking rumors. A sensational story sold papers. If a local incident even vaguely resembled the Hookman pattern, it could be amplified by the media. This created a feedback loop. The legend primed people to interpret events in a certain way. Media reports then seemed to confirm the legend's veracity. This interplay between existing folklore and contemporary reporting solidified the Hookman's place in the public imagination as a credible threat. The psychological reasons for belief in urban legends like the Hookman are complex. These stories often tap into primal fears. The fear of the dark, of the unknown, and of physical harm are universal. The Hookman legend specifically plays on anxieties related to sexuality, vulnerability, and trust. For teenagers navigating new romantic experiences, the story served as a cautionary tale. It articulated unspoken societal concerns about premarital sex and unsupervised activities. Believing the story, or at least entertaining its possibility, provided a framework for understanding and coping with these anxieties. The shared experience of fear also fostered social bonding among young people. When considering the legend's reality, the debate is multifaceted. There is no credible evidence that a single recurring killer with a hook hand terrorized couples across America. In that literal sense, the Hookman is not real. However, arguments for its truth can be made from a different perspective. The legend reflected real dangers. Assaults and murders did occur, sometimes in isolated locations. The hook itself might be a symbolic representation of any weapon or violent intent. The fear the legend generated was undeniably real. It caused genuine emotional distress and influenced behavior. Therefore, the legend was true in its impact, if not in its specific details. Conversely, the arguments against the literal truth of a nationwide Hookman are overwhelming. Law enforcement records show no such pattern of crimes by a hook-handed assailant. The story's details vary significantly from place to place. This is a hallmark of folklore, not factual reporting. The legend's persistence is due to its narrative power, not its factual basis. The social impact, however, was significant. It reinforced conservative social norms. It cautioned against straying from accepted behaviors. It also highlighted a societal fascination with the macabre. The Hookman became a cultural touchstone, a shared piece of modern folklore that said much about the era's anxieties. The legend continued to evolve, its grip on the imagination tightening with each retelling. Different versions emerged. Sometimes the Hookman was an escaped patient from a nearby asylum. Other times he was a local man seeking revenge. The core elements remained, but the specifics adapted to local contexts. This adaptability is crucial for the survival of any urban legend. It allows the story to feel relevant and immediate to successive generations. The Hookman wasn't just a monster. He was a story that communities told themselves about their fears and their rules. His legend became a dark mirror reflecting societal concerns about safety and transgression. The Hookman legend continues to hold a prominent place in modern popular culture. It has been adapted countless times in movies, television shows, books, and even comic strips. Films like I Know What You Did Last Summer directly reference the Hookman trope. Other horror movies use similar motifs of a stalker with a distinctive weapon. These adaptations keep the legend alive for new audiences. They often update the setting or the characters. However, the core fear of a hidden threat in a vulnerable moment remains potent. The Hookman has become a reliable archetype in the horror genre, a shorthand for a certain kind of suspense and terror. Even today, the story continues to scare and interest people. The basic premise remains unsettling. The idea of being attacked in a seemingly safe, private moment taps into enduring anxieties. The legend often surfaces in discussions about urban legends online. It is retold on forums and social media, sometimes with new, localized variations. This demonstrates its continued relevance. People are still drawn to the thrill of a good scare. The Hookman provides that thrill. It is a story that feels just plausible enough to send a shiver down the spine, especially when heard in the right atmosphere, perhaps on a dark night. The lasting power of urban legends, including the Hookman, is remarkable. These stories serve important social functions. They act as cautionary tales, reinforcing societal norms and warnings. They can provide a way to discuss sensitive topics like violence or sexuality, indirectly. Urban legends also entertain. They tap into our fascination with the mysterious and the frightening. The act of sharing these stories can be a bonding experience. It creates a shared sense of thrill and community. Legends like the Hookman persist because they are good stories. They are memorable, adaptable, and emotionally resonant across generations. In conclusion, the Hookman legend offers more than just a simple fright. It is a window into the anxieties and cultural dynamics of the past century. It reminds us of the power of storytelling. Stories shape our perception of the world and influence our behavior. It is important to approach such tales with critical thinking. We should question their origins and analyze the messages they convey. While we enjoy the thrill of a scary story, we must also remember the line between folklore and fact. Urban legends like the Hookman will likely endure. They are a testament to our enduring human need to tell stories, to share fears, and to make sense of a sometimes unsettling world.